Okay, everyone, let me just make sure that everything is rolling correctly here. I don't want any quick oopsies. So
Let
let me
me
mute that right there. Okay. Thank you all for joining in today for today's Smog vlog. I have a very special treat for you guys today. He's never done one of these in the US. Um, he has, he is, I consider, the OG of the model community, as far as, especially with the model car community. He's been an inspiration to me. He's one of the first people I watched when I started doing YouTube. The man is very influential, and everyone out there knows who he is. So I consider this a very good get. Now it's an honor for me to coax him out of his laboratory. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you all today's guest, the one and only Dr. Cranky. How are you doing, Doc? Yay! How you doing, Doc? I see you got the stogie ready. You're all
smoking and puffing, Gil. Smoking and puffing.
there. You go. Now, as I said in the introduction, Doc, you are probably you're one of the first people that when I started watching the YouTube and started getting into modeling. You're one of the first people that I found, and I connected with you right away with the painting and all the other stuff. So I want to ask you. We'll get into all that in a minute, because there's a lot of people, man, that you've touched. And when you mention the name Dr. Cranky, everybody knows who you are. Everybody knows who you are. So I want to go back now to the early days before you started with the YouTube and all this other stuff. How can you remember the earliest time? Because I know with me, I remember how I started with artwork and stuff and painting. What are your earliest memories of how you started with the artistic gene?
I grew up in California, and I was around lowriders, all kinds of real car mechanics and choppers, all of that stuff. And so I started building models at the level that a 13-year-old would, right? You buy the kit or you save up your money. You go to, I remember going to Thrifties in California to buy the kits. And then like the Vegas, I remember the Pintos, the Vegas, the Boot Hill Express was a real funky kit that I loved. And so, put it together. By at that time, you pretty much had to get your parental permission to get the to buy the paint, meaning you had to show up
Okay,
as
yeah.
a parent and buy a couple of cans and blah blah blah. So I wasn't really serious about it. I was going to school. I was doing some other stuff. By 18, I had discovered girls, dating, blah blah blah. So I forgot all about it. Then I got really into breeding and showing canaries, the bird,
Yes.
and I got heavily into that, and that took me for about 10 years. By that point, with my wife and I had two girls. They were young. We moved houses, and the dude whose house we bought had sprayed the garage with malathion. So that night when I showed up with all my birds, I had to leave them outside. And to make a long story short, the owls and the hawks, I suspect there were owls.
Okay.
Anyway, they murdered my 50, 100 birds that I had for that year's breeding. So I
Oh,
called up a friend of mine and I said, look, this is a sign. It's over with the birds. Come and pick up the cages and the few that are still alive. So he came over and I made the birds disappear. At that time, the garage was unfinished. So I started getting ideas.
okay.
And by that point, I was collecting Hot Wheels. So I started going to Walmart. And then I saw the 1950 Chevy pickup, which was at that time maybe $4.99. Sometimes you could even get it on sale for $3.99.
Uh-huh.
So I started buying them, and like within 2 years, I went through I don't know how many models I ruined. Just to give you an idea, I used to strip my paint with nail polish thinner,
Okay.
and of course it would melt the plastic.
Right.
So it was just so I learned, right. It was keeping a list of the shit that I would do to models that
Uh-huh.
would turn out bad. And so though I reconnected with those early lessons, right? Don't use lacquer over enamel because it's going to wrinkle the heck out of it. So I started reading around. I started learning as much as I possibly could. Then I ended up getting on YouTube in 2008. And I learned a little bit. I don't remember too many people. There was a dude there who, I don't know if he's still alive or not, but he would do his model videos topless, right? No shirt on.
Uh-huh.
And I would go, man, that's brave and that's hardcore, So it was very entertaining. But I remember one of the early people was Fast Jimmy, a few others. And then it just started because the other thing was that I had left both auto scale because it was just getting too crazy.
Uh-huh.
And then also Model Car Forum had also kind of worn me out. And so I started to do my own thing. And I liked the freedom initially. And that's how, in 2010, 2011, I started recording some stuff. But, everybody who has a channel sooner or later finds out it's a lot of work. It's a lot. And I would love to give all the free content I possibly can. But, in this country, your time equals money. And
Yeah.
I have a job, I have a family, I have things that I have to do. So, that's why I do my videos in spurts every little chance that I get. Then I'll do, 3 weeks worth of videos in 3 days and then post them, right? But yeah, I mean, that's basically in a nutshell how I ended up with the channel and doing what you and I and others do.
So now, how did the idea for the laboratory show up here? How did you come up with that?
Big Daddy Ed Roth. I had found out. I grew up in Bell, California, which was not too far from where he had his shop. And I lived in California 10 years, and he had the shop there for about 10 years or more. It never occurred to me that some of the crazy shit I was seeing on the street was coming around the neighborhood. I mean, there were people driving crazy stuff around, but I never put it together. Later, I found out who he was. Okay. And I realized, he's having a blast, and that was the other thing. I said, if I'm going to provide free content, I'm going to have fun. And so I started buying wigs and crazy sunglasses and, talking and speaking in tongues and inventing characters. The thing was that my first name, the first channel was Damn Cranky 666.
Yep. I remember that. That.
So a lot of people started writing to me saying, man, that's like the mark of the beast. Are you satanic? Are you a Satanist? Do you believe? And I go, look, my channel is not about any of that. I keep politics and religion out. It's all about model buildings. And I feel like I have to have fun. But eventually I thought, if they give me a chance to change it, I am going to change it. And that's when I just thought, Dr. Cranky's Laboratory. By that time also I have a motorcycle, and I had new fenders and a new tank painted with Dr. Cranky. And so it was great. So I just became that persona because I was having a blast. And a lot of people did, based on the views, some of those videos weren't enjoyed as much. And, because you have to, I think if you're going to build models, you've got to have a sense of humor.
Oh, you have to, yeah.
And in particular, if you're going to take it a step further and then start building for so-called competition, then you go to shows, right? You have to laugh because you're already working at a job where life is too serious, right? It's just too serious. So everything else in my life, I try to laugh as often as I possibly can. So otherwise,
now your evolution in paint. Like you said, you had mistakes, and let's talk about that because a lot of people, they go through that evolution. They figure out what's good, what isn't good, and then they settle on something. And I noticed that a lot of people, when you tell them, hey, this will work also, they don't want to get out of that rut that they're already in. So can we speak about that a little bit? Now,
that's a fantastic question, Gil. And it's a question that I ponder even when I'm not talking about it or building models, right? My frustration was always with the rattle can in that I wanted to be able to shoot as perfect as possible, right? So I learned a few little tricks from real painters, right? Like you go outside and you hose down your roof. If like me, if you're spraying outside of your garage door, right? I take the mister and the hose and I mist maybe 30 minutes. I go paint, right? But I'm
Uh-huh.
talking about painting outside where under trees and all of that.
Right.
So, later on, I built a little made out of that plastic rod. I made a little tent with some plastic so that stuff wouldn't fall on the model. But I
Right.
would also spray it with water, right? So I
Okay.
go out there with a rattle can and I would try to paint a model body in the 20 minutes that it took me to primer and then wait a little bit and then start painting, right?
Okay.
And then quickly, I would rush it back into the garage and put it under a big Rubbermaid, right? And
Yeah.
then let it gas out, right? But when I was younger, and I'm talking about maybe 15 years ago, I was very anxious and I didn't want to wait. So, come to find out, if you touch the body, you're going to leave a little bit of a print. If you take the body out from underneath the bin, it's going to get lint on it. If you're wearing a T-shirt with a lot of stuff, it just the electricity, all of that.
Right.
So it takes a long time. So as much as I try to perfect painting with both the rattle can and then even later with the airbrush to make shiny paint jobs, I was always frustrated. I don't know of a single painter of shiny competition model cars who don't know where that little tick is, right? Or they
Exactly.
point it out.
Exactly.
So and I started out being too much of a perfectionist, and that's the one thing I would advise people not to. Don't be a perfectionist. Be happy with the model you just built and painted, and put it aside. Love it for what it is, and move on to the next and learn, right?
Exactly.
And then if you end up having a hobby bench, the way I think a lot of people are doing, then if you get a closet in there or a cubicle, you can use it as your spray booth, right? And have the fans and all of that stuff. So eventually you graduate to that. But
Yeah.
I'm talking about the people who in the first year pick up model building and get going, right?
Yeah.
That was the thing. The other huge thing was that by the time I discovered the acrylics through a lot of the European and Japanese and even Russian builders, I thought that's the medium for me because acrylics will not make you feel like you've made a mistake. There is no way that you can mess up an acrylic paint job because you can repaint it. You can put a patch. You could put, you could cover your mistakes. And it's friendly at all the different levels. I mean, it's stuff that is made for the hobby. It's not toxic.
There's a if you go on some of these Facebook communities and you have the lacquer guys and they're always knocking the snot out of the acrylic, and I always tell them, look, I was a car painter in a previous life. Yes, I use lacquers, urethanes, whatever. I understand that, but sitting here for what I do, the acrylics work very well for me. Now, if I'm doing a car body, that's a different story. Now I'm gonna go with something a little bit, But if I'm doing a figure, I'm not gonna paint it in a lacquer. Yes, it shoots through an airbrush a little easier, but if you know how to thin an acrylic and you know the properties of it, you don't have those problems. Right. And I try to explain that to people, some of these people that are just strictly lacquer. Well, no, I had a problem shooting it through my airbrush. Well, yeah. Anything you introduce air through, you're going to have a problem, and I tell them that. Well, you're not going to have that with lacquers. Bolt's not, yeah.
Here's a funny story. I watched you take command of the Sotar 2020, right?
Yes.
And I love that airbrush, but that airbrush gave me a lot of trouble because you're talking about, it's like the Micron, the Iwata Micron. You're talking about you have to thin it really thin, and it's absolute detailing, little things. So, but I found that for acrylics, sometimes you want to put a little rust around a screw. And you're talking about tiny little details, right?
Yeah.
So so you learn finally that there's an airbrush for every kind of thing.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I know they're expensive, but I'm talking about as you graduate into your 5th year of model building and even into your 10th year of model building, by that point, if if some of us would stop buying kits and hoarding kits, then you could afford some fairly decent airbrushes.
Well, see, I tell people, this is what I tell people all the time when they ask me, well, you brought up the Sotar. I have a Sotar and I have trouble with it. And I tell them, look, when did you get it? This is the first time you're using it. Okay. I've been airbrushing since 1984. So I know how to work an airbrush. Now, yes, I'll have trouble with this. If I'm strictly like now, I have just been using my Badgers. I have a Micron and I it gives me fits shooting acrylics through the Micron.
Right.
But I don't use it for that. I use it for other things. I use it for inks. I use it for lacquers. That's what I use it for.
Right.
The same thing with the Sotar. I tell them, did you thin the paint? Well, the bottle says airbrush ready. Never read what the bottle tells you.
No.
Never. You always have to thin your paint.
Right.
You thin your paint. If for me personally, and I tell this to people all the time, I do not see the difference, me personally, between a Sotar and a Micron. I can get the same effect with both of them. Is the Micron a better airbrush? Man, it's a good airbrush. I've got 2 of them. I love it.
Yeah.
But why if I'm just starting out in a hobby, I can get a Sotar for a third of the price that Micron costs and learn how to work that Sotar, and then work, if I want to, I'll work my way up.
Yeah. No, that was, the Pache, the VLS or whatever, VL 5 or 6, the kit that comes with the hose, everything that you need. That's the airbrush that I would recommend people start off with, right?
Yeah.
And also, I tell people to practice with inks because inks have the kind of the viscosity that's going to go through even a very small needle. It'll go through it. If you want to see what happens when your ink becomes a little bit more viscous, a little bit thicker, then you add a little airbrush medium, right? Or hell, you put 2% milk, mix it with your ink or water, whatever, right?
Right.
So you see that it starts to get a little bit thicker. So you open up the nozzle a little bit more. I mean, the thing with the airbrush is you have to, and I'm not kidding when I say this, you have to live with it. You have to keep it in your pocket. You have to drive with it and do the, let me see if I can get my big fingers, do that all the time. And right. And don't get used to it and don't fear it. Don't be afraid of it. It's a freaking tool.
You know what I tell people all the time, Doc? I'll sit down like today, after we're done doing this, and I'm going to start painting something. I haven't touched my airbrush in 12 hours. I'll put a little water in it and I just do this.
Yeah.
Just, because I don't care how proficient you are. You're going to do a couple of test shots to make sure your finger remembers where that sweet spot is.
Right.
You have to learn how to down and back. Right. And I tell people that all the time,
It's the same way with the rattle cans. When I first started out rattle cans, right, I would get the body ready, you mount it, and then this was a mistake I would make. I would take the rattle can, shake it or warm it up, right, and then come out and spray the body. All of a sudden now the nozzle is sputtering or spitting. It's like, oh man, why didn't I start on a piece of cardboard or So I have a basketball hoop next to the garage, and it's painted in a million different colors because that's where I got used to testing the nozzles. Right. Same thing with the airbrush. You can't just turn loose. You have to warm up, and it takes a while. These are mistakes that we all make.
Sure. And we still make them. I make them all the time. Yeah. Now you got a question here from Rise Dam Designs. A good of mine, Josh Risedam. He says, "What acrylics do you use?"
I use
it's right on the screen.
I use everything. Oh, there you go. Yeah, what acrylics do you use? I use them all. For a while, I was getting production units directly from the manufacturers to test them out. And so I would test them out, and then I would go back to my own mixtures, right?
Right.
Those of us who do the craft paints from the store, and that stuff is really thick. You just have to sit there for a good 30 to 40 minutes and mix your colors and then start to reduce them. I use sometimes Windex. Sometimes if I have a bottle of airbrush thinner, acrylic thinner, I'll use that. And so eventually you work the paint down so that it goes through the airbrush, right? But yeah, any acrylic paint is going to work. I mean, the thing, and one of the reasons why I kind of fell in love with Mig Jimenez company, he's had a couple of companies,
Right.
is that he comes to modeling from the art world. So I really like the fact that he knew and he knows all of the mediums that you need to use. And he's worked really hard at bringing them down to scale for model builders. And so, to be quite honest with you, between spending 30 minutes mixing colors to get a particular color, right, or buying a bottle of the paint for $3.99 or $4.99, I'll buy the paint, right? It saves me a little bit of time, and I know it's for the most part good to go. I still have to thin it, but I use any acrylic you can get your hands on. It's good stuff, and it's workable. Just practice and then move it onto your body.
I have a lot of times. I mean, I took art in school, and I've done everything from T-shirts to motorcycle tanks. And I tell people, they say, well, I'll mix my own sometimes, but I'm at the point now where I don't want to mix them if I'm looking for a particular color. If I can buy it in the bottle, I'm buying it. But I tell people, one of these, this thing.
Yeah, that's right. The color wheel, man. Yeah.
I mean, I know color theory, but sometimes you just want to grab something and look at it, and this is your friend. Yeah. Grab one of these guys. I mean, it is your friend.
Yep. Yep. Or go to Home Depot or Lowe's and get the color cards.
Yes.
And then I mean, sometimes if you ask the person, they might give you the formula. But the smallest unit that they're gonna mix for you is a quart, which is that's a hell of a lot of paint.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll end up painting. The other thing I was gonna say that I think will help people out is that I went through the Duplicolor rattle can.
I was going to ask you about that.
Color catalog. I love those paints, but after painting a model in every one of those colors, I got bored. I go, I can't do this maroon again. I've done it, or gunmetal, or whatever. So I started mixing, and then that's where the idea of the airbrush came in, because you decant the paint, you mix a little bit, and then you're making your own color. Exactly. Again, and if you're going into competition or taking the model to the show tables, people are going to ask you about the color because you've changed it. It's a different color. They haven't seen it. Or you can use the color and then apply the mica, the flex, right? Yes. And then that changes the color. So play around, but you shouldn't really. I mean, if you're doing this in a hurry, you're gonna suffer. It's a hobby, man. You gotta put in the time, and you have to enjoy like I always say, enjoy the journey. And when I look at you in your shop, obviously you're a seasoned veteran. You've spent a lot of money on tools, and that tells me that you're not going to stop anytime soon.
No.
People always say, "Oh, did you give up?" It's like, no, man. I have thousands of dollars invested in this shit. I'm not giving it up. I know where everything is. All of my airbrushes are clean, put away. I have kids, right? So whenever I get in the mood, I go back in there. But young guys, when you get married, right? It's a space. If you have children, the kids, you're going to have to work in a closet and lock the closet because the kids are going to get in there, and you don't want them playing around with your paint.
Especially when you got chemicals and stuff around.
Yeah. So I have a friend of mine. Well, actually, he's on YouTube, but he stopped making videos now because he's focusing on his family life. Paul Turley. Paul Turley. He has a little closet because he's got 2 or 3 kids, and so I'm sure he's got a lock in the closet. Dave Roerly, his model bench is a small closet, and and it's a beautiful little bench,
Yeah,
So,
I have another room. There's another
yeah,
room over there where all the lacquers, all my airbrushes,
yeah,
most of my paints in there. The
yeah,
kits are in there, so I keep them out of here,
yeah,
away from the acrylics. Most
yeah,
of the acrylic and
yeah,
everything, big spray booth, everything is in there. So
yeah.
we got a question here from Scale Model Kit Review. That's Steve Sutton. He
So how
says,
did it come to me, Don Yost, and what car build in the past did you really enjoy? Uh, Don and I have been friends for a number of years now. Um, I discovered the DVDs, and I contacted him and said, "Look, I said basically, um, send me your DVDs. I'll pay for them." Blah blah. So he sent them to me, and I sat there watching them over and over. And he was the one who got me back into the enamel painting because I had given up on enamels. I was done with it, and then he says, "Look, if you start mixing your colors." He gave me a couple of his secret color formulas.
uh-huh, uh-huh,
He has this orange color in some of his models that he custom mixes it,
uh-huh.
and they're beautiful. So we just became fast friends, and then we started challenging each other because I said, "All you do is paint shiny," and he goes, "Oh no, you're wrong about that. I can paint the hell of a rusty model because of my experiences from model railroading." And I said, "All right, let's have a challenge. I'll do a shiny and you do a rusty." And so we started doing that. We get along really well. We talk to each other every once in a while. But we complain usually about the same things, which is that he has a real time job. I have a real time job. And as much as we love the community and we want to give back, uh, it does become a little repetitive, right? So I always tell people not to be mean or not to be, pissed off or anything. I just say, look, I can't do that video because I've done it. Gil has done it. Don has done it. A whole bunch of people have done it. So look around.
Yeah,
But that's and I also am able to tell how young the model builder is by how anxious they are about getting questions answered quickly, because these are journeys that you and I and a whole bunch of people, we just learned it along the way, and it's
yeah,
taken years, right?
yeah, yeah.
So take a little bit of time, ask around, read, and you'll pick it up. I ended up dropping my subscription to Scale Model Magazine because I felt it had become too repetitive, and so there I felt, well, it's like 19.99 or however much it was, so I can use the money for some other stuff. So you're always moving stuff around.
Now, another part of this question was, in your past, what car kit did you really enjoy building?
I have seriously built, if not close to 100, maybe even over 100 of the Chevy 3100s.
Uh-huh.
When it was cheap, I would buy them by the dozen, and I chopped them up. I did I opened the doors. I butterflied the hood, and most of them were noted. I mean, those don't exist. You would never see them from me because I just either threw them out or I put them aside to rob parts from, because it was just one disappointment after another. And that's a great kit to begin with, because it's got very sexy curves. It's got a lot of smooth panels. At that time, I think the kit wasn't as worn as it's been in the last few, castings. So it's a good kit, and I love it. I always had. It's like the 49 mark. I have built, I don't know how many 49 marks. Every year I seem to build one because I get new ideas,
Mhm.
and it just calls to me, man. I mean, I keep my favorites up near me so that I can look, because they make me salivate. I see
Yeah.
that the Pinto, they're re-releasing the Pinto and the Vega, and those are dear to my heart. But I've also been disappointed when I cracked open the kit and realized that it's kids with the same problems they had back when I was a teenager. But I'm supposedly a much better modeler now, so I don't have those qualms anymore. So I work with what I get.
I got,
Uh,
I got a friend here says, "Where's my stogie? I can't smoke in the house, man. They won't let me
right?
smoke,
Yeah.
or else I'd be sitting there smoking a nice Christoph, man. Believe me." No, now, you also do some futuristic or Mad Max type of stuff, or like the ones you just did with the you know the what do you call it, with the elevated, the electric? How did
I
that?
call them boosters or gravity boosters,
Yeah,
whatever they're,
how'd you you know? I mean, what inspires you to do those?
Well, the artist, the Argentinian artist who does those illustration, I think his name is Antonio Tony Burciaga or Burdicio, something like that. Those illustrations, if you look at a few, it'll spark your imagination. But there were other people. I mean, at that level, then I started thinking about Ken Hamilton, who never builds box stock, and then also Pat Covert. Where they'll take a kit and they'll start chopping it up, and then they add stuff to it. So a lot of the Russian builders right now and Eastern European builders are doing some amazing stuff. There are a couple of Brazilian builders. So I love all types of modeling, and I look at it all because to me, it's the same kind of a thing, right? You're taking a kit and you're making it yours, and you're enjoying it. So I don't join the discussions and the arguments about, oh no, if you're gonna, it's got to be this over that, which is why I don't tend to put aside like the dudes who are doing the die cast.
Okay.
If you take a die cast and you take it apart and you strip it to the bare metal, and then you want to do some bondo work and stuff, knock yourself out. At the end of the day, you're looking at something that somebody made new, and it looks great, right? Or it doesn't, but that's
Now, earlier you and I were talking about the cost of the kits, like with the
well,
Warhammer, the Revels, all that other stuff. What are your thoughts on that, Doc?
well, they're getting too expensive, but like with everything else, you have to prioritize where you spend. Most of us with families, we have our budgets, right? I write, and then that's part of my living. I go and give talks. Sometimes I get a little bit of extra money, and so
Mhm.
I have my model related, my hobby related kitty. But trust me, the minute I go over the edge, my wife is the first one to ring the alarm, right?
Oh, I know that file. Yeah,
But
yeah.
again, don't be in a hurry, right? Take it takes a long time to get all the right tools. The other thing I'm going to say is what my father always told me, which is a particular generational advice that probably youngsters don't hear that much anymore, which is that what you buy cheap is going to be expensive, right?
Yes.
If you go and buy cheap tools, they're going to break on you. So that means that then you're going to keep buying cheap tools that are going to keep break. So if you can afford it, you get the very best you can. And that's it, but at the end of the day, our calipers are all calipers, the same caliper. Maybe I have some wood calipers, I have metal calipers, I have cheap plastic calipers, and so you begin to amass and build a huge collection of these things. Some are better than others. And then every year I buy a new sprue cutter. I buy new tweezers because I have a cement floor in the workshop. So the tweezers fall, and guess what? The tip either bent or it broke off.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those I tend to buy at a reason, cheaper in that case is better because I know I'm going to mess them up. Uh, the other thing that Don told me, which is a fantastic thing, but you have to be very careful with it, is the surgical scalpel
Oh,
blades.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You,
Oh yeah.
you better. Well, I cook as well, so I have these very sharp knives, and I'm always cutting myself. So I know what it is to get cut
Mhm.
by So scalpels, be extremely careful with it. But a scalpel will get you some panel scribing. It'll cut decals. It'll do all of this stuff that. But use it for that. Just
Yeah.
use
I,
it.
I see a lot of guys that especially like say figure painters, when they trying to get into figures, they want to buy everything. I got to get Gil. What kind of brushes you have? And I'll tell them I've got Winsor Newtons, Raphaels. I mean, I've got everything from the high end to the low end.
Right.
But I always tell them don't run out and buy the expensive stuff.
Right.
There are alternatives to it. Now
Right.
later on, because looking around this room, Doc, I've probably got, like you said, a few $1,000s worth of stuff in there, and that's not counting the airbrushes. I've got 40 of them.
Yeah.
So there's a few grand worth of airbrushes in there.
Yeah.
You're
Well,
not,
if you kept your receipts, right, which I started to do, but the first couple of years it scared the heck out of me, and I said I better burn these things, because if people find out how much I'm spending on supplies and tools, it ends up being quite a bit.
Oh,
So
sure.
so I don't keep the receipts, but just looking around, even now I'm looking at your shop and I go, I mean, you've got lamps, you've got all these tapes, you've got all kinds of, is that a plotter near you or a printer? You've
Oh,
got, yeah,
that's my printer, but my plotter's coming.
yeah, right, yeah. So it's again, uh, save a little bit. If you're a teenager, put some stuff on the Christmas list. Tell people, and I remember one guy. I don't know. I think he was from New Zealand. It was a kid who was like 16. He was very talented, and he reached out to me and he said, "Look, I don't have any money, man. I don't have any." So I put together a little care package, and I sent it to him, and I said, "Look, don't feel bad if eventually life is going to take over, right?" So about 3 months later, after I sent him this shipment, I really didn't hear from him, and I go, and it wasn't that I was expecting, "Hey, man, thank you for the kids and the extra tools and shit and paint," but I said, "Hey, what's going on?" And he said, "Oh, my parents are upset. I'm spending too much time model building. My schoolwork is suffering." And I go, "Well, then you got to do that. Put the box away, and then when you're ready, come back. Right? Don't throw it out. Don't sell. Don't get rid of it. Keep it
Yeah.
around. Right?
Now,
Of course, yeah."
now you've done books, and there's a question here from Brett Marcotte. He's high altitude scale modeling. He says, "Do you have any more books coming out, Doc? I've read the ones I have from you a dozen times."
Well, thank you. Yeah, I unfortunately one of my partners in crime was Harry Pristovnik, who was the design guru behind the Cranky, all Cranky stuff, right? The merchandise, the books, and Harry. And I mean, I'm gonna say this because it's kind of a private thing, but Harry passed away of colon cancer,
Mhm.
and I'm always telling people, by the time you hit 50, man, I waited too long. I should have gone in at 45 because my dad died of colon cancer complication. Uh, I went in at 52 and I was sweating bullets because I thought I was sick. And of course, you don't feel a darn thing. People are terrified, but you don't feel anything. So now I go in all the time. I have to go in every 5, 10 years. But Harry, unfortunately, was getting these backaches, and he went to his main doctor, and the doctor said it's probably sciatica. I suffer from sciatica too.
Mhm.
So, but it turned out that Harry had stage 4 colon cancer, and he lasted, I think, maybe 6 months, 7 months. And so Harry died. And when Harry died, I lost my I couldn't, I could write and I could provide, because I would write the text and I
Mhm.
would send them the pictures, and Harry would design the books, and he did a beautiful job. In the time that I was working with Harry, I learned to use Photoshop and Illustrator and all of that. Um, but I can't do what Harry was a professional designer,
Mhm.
and he certainly did a great job on those books. And I feel like I've said everything I needed to say, right?
Right.
Including the book on the zombie hunters, and I'll let other people do it. I think Meg Ammo is putting out some great stuff. AK is putting out some great diorama books. Ken Hamilton allegedly is working on a revision of his diorama book. So and I have other commitments and stuff. So
Right.
there's not really going to be any books from me, at least until further notice. But those of you the books are still available. You can still get them on Amazon. And I'm very proud of those books because it gives you a range. There are books on Gundams that are now coming out more and more, and how you can weather them, and that's mind blowing stuff.
Now let's get into that. Let's get into that because you've done some Warhammer stuff. Am I correct?
Yeah,
What do you think of those?
yeah. I went nuts over them. I started going out to the stores and buying the kits, and every time I would spend the money, I would think, how in the hell are children supposed to afford this? This is unaffordable. This can't be maintained, right? So then I thought, these kids are probably making up the smallest army that they could possibly make, and then they either paint them or they play them naked, right? They play them
Right.
on paint, and so I said, you know what? I really love the details, so I'm going to start painting uh, the ones that I like. But having, even though I said that, I ended up building a couple of armies. Not a couple. I have an orc army. I have a space marine army. I have a chaos army. I have the oh man, what are those alien ones called?
Oh, the towel. Is it the towel? The ones with
No, the dinosaurs. The
Oh God, I can't remember it. I know what you're talking
I have Eldar. I have the again those creatures. So I have about 4 or 5 in different stages of completion, and I don't play them. That's my sickness with model building. I don't care about showing them to other people. I just go back and play with them as if I were 12 years old. I just revert back, and I love looking at a well painted miniature.
about.
And I think that's a good place to start because you will have a lot of, like, if you buy a curio shop or a display case, even a small one, you can have a nice little army displayed in the corner of a room, as opposed to if you're building, I don't know, 1/24th scale airplanes. How many of those are you going to hang from your ceiling before you're done? You're going to have to move out because you're surrounded by floating airplanes, right?
Right.
Ships. Right.
So let's talk about the YouTube channel. You've been around for 9, 10 years on there, and you've gotten to the point now where you condense your videos.
Right.
Now we touched on that a little bit.
Yeah.
About the time. You got another life and stuff like that. There. What advice would you give somebody up and coming that wants to do something like that? What advice would you give someone?
Yeah, just start simple, right? Get your phone, right? If you have an iPhone or you have something else, make your videos that way, yeah, right? Put them down so that they're not shaking, because it does get to it does drive your viewer crazy. Did I lose you?
No, I'm here. We're here.
Okay, so it says having trouble connecting. This is often caused by an unstable. Okay, I'll keep talking.
You're good.
So, the other thing that people still complain about, and more often, if they're really rude, I kick them off the channel completely because I never want to hear from them again. It's like, hey man, why didn't you learn to talk? And why is it and I would tell those people, if they're not rude, I go, look, I didn't go to broadcasting school. I started shooting this stuff with a cheap camera and those headphones with the little microphone in the front.
Right.
Man, I'm making some free content for you. If you want somebody who speaks professionally, I don't know what to tell you. Go listen to those people, right? So don't be bashful. Don't be shy. Don't be, you have to have a little thick skin, because people are going to tell you exactly what they think.
Oh, yeah.
If you're going to show your models to people, be ready for a little kindness and also a little meanness. People will say, "Oh no, that looks horrible," right? And it's like, don't let that defeat you. Keep going, because we're all in the same boat, right?
Yeah.
But if you feel the inkling, show your stuff. Make a good. I've always found the video length for me is 5 minutes. The longer videos I've provided in my channel is usually stuff that I'm trying to figure out, or I'm really excited, like those videos where I have found a piece of plastic, either via a toothpaste cap or a shampoo bottle, that I find at the market. That excites the heck out of me. So I'll make an 8-minute video saying, look, you can turn this into a grill. You can make a spaceship out of this, blah, blah, blah. But the how-to videos are very difficult to make. They're time consuming. And like I said, my apology is I wish I could do it and do it more often, but I have a job. I mean, I teach, right? So I have responsibilities. I have a family life. So I can't be making 45-minute how-to videos. It's just, I mean, I'll
and like you mentioned, I mean, a lot of the stuff that we have gone over, myself and especially you and other people, you can find, if you're looking for that. I mean, why make the same video over and over and over again? You know?
Listen, I am ADHD. I cannot focus. I have a hard time even not boring myself to death, which is, I do watch some of my videos and I'll give myself 30 minutes and then I click away because I get bored. It's, and so watch, what I tell people is watch different people and get what you can from them and then move on, but all the basic answers, the community is very rich in that way. All the basic answers have been answered by people who've discovered and who have given it a little bit more time, right? You with the batch of airbrushes, other people with the awatas, with the paches, you name it, right? So look around, look around. The answer is there for you. And so I don't have to give you all the answers, and Gil doesn't have to give you all the answers. And even Don Yost doesn't have to give you all the answers. There are other people, who are doing their own thing, and some of it just entertains the heck out of me, right? Chris Chapman, who weathers with cooking spices.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's like, hey man, if you don't mind your model smelling of hot chocolate or paprika or whatever, it's fine with me,
So what is when you journey through the YouTube jungle there? What is it that you like to see in the community? What excites you when you see it in the community?
I love, for example, I always click on the on the videos that are showing me already either a built model or a model that's just being built. Maybe you just cut off the doors, like Jimmy. I have to confess, Fast Jimmy 71 cannot post a video that I immediately not watch because I love the way he works initially on a model, right? And through Jimmy, I revert back to my childhood. I think he's a friend of mine in middle school or high school, and we're talking about cars and the excitement of cutting, and So Jimmy, I watch his stuff all the time because he's still the same guy from the beginning, right? He's working on his models. He loves building, and I like his enthusiasm and energy, right? And that's why he doesn't give us that many videos. I mean, Jimmy goes on hiatuses for quite a long time.
Yeah.
But when he posts a new video, I watch it, and I enjoy the heck out of them. But, the guys that get a sweep and they have the turntable and then they have the car finished, and then they have a 3-minute video with the music in the background, right?
Yeah.
And the camera moves in and out, and I get to see those
you get to see it all. Yeah. Now, how did Doc? I want to switch gears here. How did you get into building guitars? How did that happen?
Oh man, I've always wanted to play the guitar. I have 2 shame stories concerning my father and what I did to my father, which I don't feel good about now that he's gone, and I'm an old man myself. In Spain, I had a dream that I could play acoustic guitar, right? And my father is a huge acoustic guitar lover. He loved Segovia and a whole bunch of those guys, right? So I had a dream. I remember it was Sunday, and I must have been 11. I started harassing him about, I had a dream. I could play the guitar. Buy me a guitar. Buy me a guitar. Well, my father got me, and we went to a guitar store, and he bought me a pretty darn good acoustic guitar, which I still had up until recently. And the minute I held that thing in my hand and I tried to figure it out, I realized it was math. I mean, it was like math, and I don't do math. So immediately I put it down. He was disappointed. I was disappointed. And so that stuck with me, right? I mean, and then the other one, just to finish the story there, was that I made him buy me a train set. And then I played with the train set for 2 hours and gave it up. And, this is money that you're costing your parents, right? So I didn't feel good about that. So with the guitars, I just started thinking, you know what? I'm going to make a cigar box guitar. So I made a few cigar box guitars, and I learned how to wire and solder and all of that. And then I moved over to the electric guitars. And I started playing about 3 years ago. I still don't know how to play, but every time I pick up the guitar and I play it, I feel like I'm making progress and I'm getting a little bit better. Chords and finger placement and all of that. So I build them, I play them, I sell them to somebody who does know how to play and who enjoy. And they've been selling.
Yeah,
So
you have.
that's another hobby.
Yeah.
That's another hobby.
Now, yeah, because but you're also a poet.
Yes, I am a man of many hats.
That's
I
why
do
you're a
one thing,
Renaissance man. Yeah.
and I don't do any of it at any sense of, I just do it because I love to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, the love of poetry, where'd that come from?
Oh, I had always, since I was 14, I've been writing poetry, and then I wrote novels and collections of stories and blah, blah, blah. And, and that's how I ended up getting my, I teach at FSU, I teach at the university here in Tallahassee. Well,
Okay.
I'm not really in Tallahassee. I'm in Miami right now, but back home.
Right.
And that's how I've made my living. Otherwise, I couldn't do it. I mean, I wouldn't be able to have, I would never have the workshop I have. But in essence, it's kind of stealing money from my kids and my family, right?
Right.
It's shit that they don't participate in, but I get all the joy out of it, and so. But I mean, I don't feel that guilty. I just do what I need to do, and to me, it's all related. All my hobbies are related. Oh, wait, and here's the new hobby. I just got myself a wood turning lathe.
Uh-oh.
And I'm going to start making fountain pens. I haven't started, but I have the stuff. So
There's just all kinds of stuff going on in the laboratory, huh?
it's insanity, but
You have Atomic Dog here. He goes by Mini Warmutt.
Oh yeah, of course.
He says, look at here, two old schoolers of the community. He says, Doc, you look good. Get a haircut and you will look great.
Well, fly down and put a mask on and get your lawnmower and put it on my head. Yeah.
So now let's before we wrap this up, I want to talk a little bit about your YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Now you have some of everything on there. Now, if someone is looking for some advice or some how-tos, what would you recommend?
Look to the playlist. There's some how-to playlists. There's some painting playlists. There's some airbrush playlists. If you go to playlist, if you click on playlist now, you could see a whole bunch of stuff. Some of model related, others. Like I had a little playlist of because I also photograph. So I have a playlist called Road Gold, and this is real cars that I have found along the way, and blah blah blah. Right. So there's a little bit of everything on there. So I would begin with that, and then but look, I mean, there's over 2,000 videos.
Yeah, there's
a lot of stuff on there.
Quite a few. So before we wrap this up, Doc, I don't want to take too much of your time here.
We've been having fun.
Yeah. Before we wrap this up, I want to address one thing, and I get some of it, and I'm sure you have. We have some people in the community that are haters. They don't like you for whatever reason. For whatever reason, they don't like the shirt you got on or the cigar you're smoking. What do you got to? I mean, I deal with that every now and then myself.
Right.
So, how do you, for someone that's starting out, like we were talking earlier with their YouTube channel, I tend to tell them ignore it, because when you put yourself up on YouTube, you put yourself up to the world.
Yep. And
there's gonna be people there that don't like you for whatever reason. You said it earlier. Oh, because you say what would you tell these people? Even some of these guys, I've seen some of these guys that have been around for a long time. I'm not making YouTube videos because nobody's watching my video.
Yeah.
Well, you're not putting up content that they want to watch.
Right.
So what would you say to that?
Well, first of all, I put the content I want to put up, and like I tell people, it's my channel, and I can cry if I want to, right? So you watch what you watch. If you're starting out, again, build that thick skin, right? I mean, man, when I first started, I had people who would get on there and get really racist on my ass. I mean, they would call me all kinds of names, And then I realized, oh wait, there's this thing. There's a filter where you punch in all of the flag words, and I'm telling you, I put at least 200 words on there. You know,
Yeah.
spick,
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
beaner, right? All of that shit. When
Oh,
a
yeah.
mother, I'm not gonna go over the list. But yeah, and so those comments get flagged. And what I normally do is, if it's really out of control, I ban the person, and if not, I ignore it. If people want to give you thumbs down, hey, that's your prerogative, right? That you can do whatever you want. That's not going to get to me. That's also not going to stop me from making the videos I want to make.
Exactly. Exactly.
So just enjoy it, and don't let that stuff get to you, because we all get it, and you will get it too. And
Oh yeah.
so what? Let me put it this way. This is my philosophy of life, right? On the planet, you have creators and you have destroyers, and so don't let the destroyers stop your creativity, right? Don't
That's
let
what I
them
tell them all. Yeah, I tell them that all the time.
and do your thing, and you have fun.
Yeah. So
You
what's
know
it?
what?
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. When you turn off the camera, you spend time with your grandchildren, with your family, and you have your meal. You go out to the park, you do whatever, and you forget about it. And then
Yeah.
you come back, and that's fine,
Yeah.
right? It's not like we're having 24/7 videos, right? Like these webcams where you're watching me
Yeah.
all the time. That's not going to happen. But
I,
enjoy it.
I learned a long time ago, man, that a long time ago, even before I started doing this, that people are going to say what they want to say. Whether they like your artwork or don't. That's the thing about art. Some people like it, some people don't.
Yeah,
Uh,
somebody posted just on the side there. It says former U of A Wildcat. I did go to the University of Arizona briefly. I fell in love with the desert, but I had to get out. I mean, they were not giving me any money, so I took off. Ended up in Baton Rouge. But yeah,
so what's the future of the laboratory and your channel, Doc? What do you see in
No,
the
it's still there. It'll be there. We're going to be clocking in our 20th anniversary in the next few years. Yeah, I'll continue to do videos. But lately I've had a lot of commitments, a lot of commissions that I've had to tend to, and so plus I did. You saw what I did with those three
Oh,
gravity vehicles, right?
those were
I get on those things where it's like, and sometimes it'll be 3 or 4 models back to back because I'm trying to figure it out, and I'm having a blast. So yeah, I'll come in and out, but on a regular basis, I'm having a hard time now because a lot of the children in the family are getting married. We're traveling, so it keeps me away from the bench commitments. Right, the same
yeah.
way that if you're a young person and you have to go to school and do your homework, you got to do your homework. Yeah.
Well, Doc, I wanna thank you. I want to
This thing lasted the length of a cigar. That was perfect.
thank.
Perfect.
I want to thank you. It was an honor to have you here. Next time you're in Chicago, hit me up, man. We'll go have some Cuban food up on the north side and smoke some good stogies.
You bet. You bet.
Thank you, and you know what? And thank you for everything you do for the community. Thank you.
All right, Gil. Thanks a lot. Keep building. I need to be entertained, folks. It's your turn. Entertain me.
There you go. Well, Doc, you take it good. You take care. Have a good one, man. Enjoy the rest of the day.
All right. Bye, buddy.
Bye. All right, guys. I wanna thank him for taking time to out of his day. I mean, he's a busy man, and he took the time out of the day to sit with. He's never done it before, so we had a good conversation. I hope it was informative for you guys. Tune in next week. Next week we're going to have James Wappel, figure painter extraordinaire. And if there's any suggestions you guys have for a guest, please let me know. Hit me up. Let me know. I'll reach out to the people. Have them on. If there's anything you want to hear from, or a person you want to hear from, and pick their brain, please ask questions and whatever. Again, we have Doc's page here, his YouTube page. Go check it out. Dr. Cranky's Laboratory. Go check him out. He's got man's got a lot of videos up there, man. So you guys have a good one. I hope you have a great Saturday. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Stay safe. Stay healthy. In these trying times we have, just enjoy the hobby, guys. Be good to your families. Love your children. Leave the drama to the queens. And hey, until next week, man, you guys have a good one. It's Gilbert, old Smog here saying peace, brothers. Have a good day.